People are screaming that the US dollar is dead. I disagree, and I seen this screaming and shouting several times before in my lifetime, in my professional lifetime, and it never was true.
The US dollar is depreciating. What does this mean for investors and borrowers?
Johanna, thank you for the question. It means probably different things for borrowers and investors, so great that you separated the question. If you look at it from two perspectives, a macroeconomical perspective, we Kilde as an emerging market like investor, depreciating US dollar impacts us a lot and impacts a lot the emerging market economies in the Asia, because most of the trade, international trade, is actually settled in the US dollars, and the prices of oil and minerals and a lot of important energy products are denominated in USD. And when USD is depreciating, on the one hand, it decreases the price of the imports. On the other hand, for the exporting countries, might be difficult because they will get less value for their export. But generally, we can see that it is improving the exchange rates, appreciating the exchange rates of the emerging markets currencies against the US dollar, which could lead to lower inflation, and which could lead to the local population will have more money. It also reinvigorated the discussion about the haven currencies, safe haven currencies. One, definitely everybody will agree that the Swiss franc is the haven currency, and it was doing really well in appreciation. Actually, Singapore dollar is holding up quite well as well, and yen is a bit specific, but it's also a currency which is it has been relatively weak, and let's see if we're gonna appreciate actually with this downward movement of the US dollar.
It's interesting that you mentioned it, because we're now seeing investors requesting more tranches in Singaporean dollars and even yen that we have not yet done, which is a bit different to the borrowers then that benefit from lending from us in US dollars.
Yes, correct. The borrowers, when they are borrowing from us in US dollars, now is a good time for them, because generally it is cheaper for them to borrow in the US dollar, and that improves the overall credit quality in the medium term for the borrower, because they, in absolute terms, in their local currency, they pay less for the borrowing. But on the other hand, from the investor, it's not so great if the investor has a base currency like Singapore dollar. Then generally they will get less, right? Let's use an example of very popular trade, private credit, large cap funds, KKR, Apollos, and so on. They invest in the US. The fund is denominated in the US dollars. The headline performance in USD is now just below 10%, 9-8% usually what the investors get here in Singapore. And imagine if there's a sharp depreciation of the USD, then it can further, in the Singapore dollar terms, cut away from this yield, and we can go into the mid to low single digits even on those investments. So yes, it is a general recommendation for the investors to actually diversify across a larger pool of currencies, including the emerging market currencies.
And if you're an investor invested in USD tranches, should you be concerned looking from a long-term perspective?
Well, that's a hard question. Like some financial veterans would agree with me that like there have been many times then US dollar drop sharply. I distinctly remember like 2008. I also remember other times when the US dollar was under pressure, and there was always the narrative, oh, it's an end of the US dollar domination. Now the Chinese renminbi will be, I don't know, like some other Russian ruble, Bitcoin, stable coin will displace US dollars, and so on and so on. although it never materialized, and the US dollar usually rebounded quite strongly after a while. So it's foreign exchange markets do not follow some like a specific trend, unlike stock markets or a bond. Therefore, they more react to some events, or maybe our view of the situation is a bit different. And when this view of the situation will change, that may change how the US dollar is viewed, and again might appreciate very sharply. So in the longer term, it's very hard to say. So you can agree with many of the narratives. Still, the most of the international trade is made in US dollars, and most importantly, the most of the foreign exchange markets actually, or the currencies, when we are swapping from one to another, usually they are swapped to the US dollar, right? So that's very hard to displace the US dollar. So I wouldn't worry that much about. The same way we never have displayed gold as the underlying like core assets through which we are valuing the rest of the assets. we can argue so much that it's such a prehistoric, outdated like notion, and it is still there,
Yeah.
and you can see how precious like the gold now just became, but how volatile it is at the same time.
All right, so the US dollars is definitely not dead. Thank you very much, Radek.
Yeah, thank you very much.